matches today, and we've got Flurry versus BloodTrail coming up. So again, just to note, some of the the two divisions have kind of 50-50 merged as well, so we get to see some matchups that we did not see in the previous season. So I'm excited to see what Flurry and BloodTrail can do. I feel like Flurry had a really strong season last season.
Yeah, I was very impressed with what Flurry was going for. Definitely a little bit off meta in terms of a lot of, or at least a signature twist on the meta decks that we were seeing from him. And I think we're seeing that again. I believe Flurry is one of the few players who has gone for, as we will frantically line up the deck lists, this is what we usually use the break for, was to go for the Quest Rogue I think he's got here, which was pretty interesting to look at.
Yep.
Not many players have gone for that, because I remember in all the predictions, the Rogue Quest felt like a very divisive card. People were either giving it 1 or 4, which was kind of the general scale for what a lot of players were reviewing cards. And I think it's, interestingly enough, ended up kind of somewhere in the middle, as it so often does. Quest Rogue, I think, is in a decent spot at the moment. It's got its purpose. Personally, however, I favour these slightly more aggressive playstyles.
Yeah, it's the question that often comes up when a class has access to multiple archetypes is the archetype good or playable? Yes, no. Is it better than other archetypes that class can do? That's the question that makes whether it's playable or not. We can see what we've got coming up though. BloodTrail has his Hunter band out and Protected Warrior, pretty standard from what we've seen, and also has the Druid and the Mage available to him, whereas Flurry, another Hunter protection, and it's got Mage band out and has Warrior Rogue. So I feel like with BloodTrail, especially with this Druid, which is the Quest Druid, has got a little bit more of the stranger lineup. So maybe he can get ahead through that, but Flurry's looking pretty solid.
Yeah, he's looking to be in a pretty good spot. I think both of these players going with very standard strategies. Again, interestingly enough, we're seeing BloodTrail on the standard, I'm going to say level 0 strategy, which is not to say it's bad at all, of just protecting his warrior, banning the mage, protecting his good deck, getting rid of his opponent's good deck, which has worked out, I think, kind of reasonably well so far, and we'll see as the weekend develops how this strategy evolves.
Yeah, and I think it's fair just to comment on what Tyler just said is he approached week 1. It's pretty hard to work this format out in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So I'll bring some good decks that I can play and see what happens. As we see, Flurry is going to be on the Hunter, and again, you've seen it before, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It is going to be that Highlander Hunter. So we can move quickly on to BloodTrail's Druid when we get that ready, as this is much more interesting. The first Druid of the league, and it is a strange one. It is not Malygos, but it is Quest, and it has that Chef Nomi available to it instead.
Yeah, also somewhat of a Quest, sorry, not the Quest version, the Highlander version as well, with obviously a lot of duplicates thrown in there, but less than the full amount we've been seeing in some lists. There are obviously a lot of versions that run pretty much full duplicates, as well as still Zephyrus and Elise, whereas here we're seeing a bit of a hybrid. Some of the pretty powerful cards in the deck still only being run one copy of, like Hidden Oasis, and Bees, of course, as well, one of the most powerful cards to come out for Druid. I think this deck right now is not in a particularly strong spot. However, I think the real benefactor of the is that one who gives
beneficiary.
Beneficiary. There you go. That's the one I was looking for.
Beat you on the word game. First time for everything. Let's go.
Good job. You are much gooder than I on the words. But I think it's going to get a lot better next after the nerfs come down, because the mage, wow, I really can't speak. The mage is going to be losing a lot of the single big minions, which Druid really struggles with. And once the Reno mage falls by the wayside, at least a little bit, I think the Druid will be able to come back on form and dominate that meta. This week, however, a little bit unconvinced on how the Druid's going to perform.
Yeah, there's one card specifically I want to look out for as well, as we see Flurry versus BloodTrail kicking off game number 1. Flurry on the top on the Hunter, BloodTrail on the Druid. But for me, I thought Overflow was going to be, as you would say, the nuts.
Me too.
You know what the biggest problem I had with Overflow? It wasn't the fact that it heals your opponent or anything like that. I could not hold all the cards.
Yeah.
Like with Nourish, especially with the quest being so powerful.
Nourish is
I was
too
like,
good.
because of the quest and Nourish, I cut Overflow almost instantly, because it's like, I cannot draw this many cards. Yeah. It's insane. But BloodTrail is running it. He is running Chef Nomi.
That's a
so
combo
if you have Nomi in your hand, maybe you just burn the cards, absolutely fine. But I was trying to run the Malygos package and was like, yeah, I cannot make this fit.
BloodTrail here has got an absolutely dream hand. The fact that he's throwing down the coin on turn 1, I agree completely. This means that the quest will be completed heading into turn 5, which allows Oasis Surger 2 5/5s with Rush to start locking down the board. He even finds the Wrath to be trying to clear up the board heading into turn 3 as well. This is the dream hand, the absolute dream.
Yeah, calling it a curve is weird, but as you'll quickly learn in Quest Druid, the curve is weird.
Yes.
So that you want to play just always 1 mana off curve leading into the opening turns, hence the coin as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But even like the coin and then turn 2 into the Worthy Expedition, which he only runs 1 of, is perfect. Absolutely perfect.
It's kind of interesting to think of the quest as like the opposite of Wild Growth, because you play it and it kind of takes away one of your mana crystals.
It's true. For a few turns. And it may as well give you 100.
Right, exactly. You just explode. And I was even going to criticize BloodTrail for keeping the Ferocious Howl, which I still think was a bit of a weird keep, because what, does he want to play that on turn 4?
Yes.
Well, he didn't have the rest of the curve, right? At that point, he didn't have the Exploration or the Wrath.
Yeah, I think for me, though, having anything to play on those turns that gets you, that progresses you in the game is good.
Right, but there's much better options. There's 2 Wraths, there's a Bees, there's obviously the Worthy Expedition, Crystal Merchant. I think there's quite a lot of stuff I'd rather play. Because you want to remove, right? Because you're not doing anything. So I think on turn 3, Bees, on average, is a much, much better card to have than Ferocious Howl.
I do love me some card draw, though, Darren.
As do I. Ferocious Howl is a super powerful.
That wasn't in the original versions that people made day 1 and day 2.
Still not in a lot of versions.
Yeah, my mind's blown. It's one of the first cards I put in the deck apart from the quest.
Right. It's really one of the remnants of the powerhouse of Malagos or Togwag Druid. When I just think back to it, I'm like, wait a second, that's still in standard. How? This card is insane.
They've just slipped it into like just a classic set and no one's noticed. But here we go, as you mentioned, with the use of the coin. That just happens a turn earlier, which is so big.
This hand is insane. Being able to go Oasis Surger into Flute version is nuts. He could even go for Nourish first if he wanted to on turn 6.
Yeah, just Oasis Surge and Nourish if anything gets too much. Starfall.
Sure.
Yeah, and for those of you, for those of you who don't know, that hero power now, which is active from the quest, is passive. It's always on. You don't use mana on it. That's why it doesn't have a number there. But all of your choose ones, they both happen.
Yeah.
Very similar to
Fandral.
Fandral. I was going to say Flandris, and was like, that's the wrong card.
Headly doodly, Druid.
I didn't make that link. Okay, that's funny. Anyway, yes, you get both effects. So Starfall will deal 5, then deal 2 to the board. So it's very, very powerful. Nourish gives you 2 mana and draws 3 cards. It's insane once you get it active.
As you are about to see,
boom.
This is monstrous.
Who cares about
5 mana for 2 5/5 rush is it boggles the mind. This is the single reason you're allowed to play Quest Druid. If this card didn't exist, you would not even consider playing this deck, I don't think. And it's also a reason why, even in the versions that run Floop and Elise, Zephyrus and Elise, you still, I think, want to be playing 2 of these at minimum.
Oh, 100%.
At minimum.
Yeah.
And you probably also want to be playing 2 Anubisat Sentinels and all that stuff. Defenders.
Speaking of which, they are not in this list, which is, unless I'm being... Oh, sorry, they are.
Yeah.
It's a card I want to talk about as well, because very remnant of Arcane Tyrant. It's like Arcane Tyrant with Taunt.
Yeah.
And all your good cards are high cast.
Right.
Like Nourish.
It took one of the most busted cards in Druid and made it better. Which I think was justified. Druid was in a pretty weak spot before Saviors of Uldum.
Execute going to be used to clear off this 5 for it. Right now, whenever this happens, you have to value how good Zephyrus was.
Yeah.
And Zephyrus allowed a board to be stuck and push some more damage. But now, that is a huge power play that Flurry does not have access to anymore.
If you thought the original Oasis Surger was good, how about 1 mana less for
That's
one
the thing.
more health?
They aren't 3/4s. Yeah, they aren't 3/4s with the buff.
Yeah. Insane. And now Flurry is going to have to try and wrestle this back, I guess, with Dino Tamer Bran as his best option, but he's not even close to lethal in this instance. Not even close.
Yeah, and I've been playing the Mali version, but still the core of the deck is very, very similar. And I'll tell you now, there aren't many decks that can answer Druid once it gets cooking like this. There really aren't.
Yeah, you're pretty much relying on killing them first as the aggro half of Highlander Hunter.
or playing a deck that runs cards like Earthquake.
Yes, exactly. Any kind of the control decks, I think, have a chance. Obviously, Control Warrior in particular. But yeah, I could see Control Shaman maybe being able to stand up to the might of Druid.
Well, for example, like I was playing Battlecry, the Quest Shaman, and just played Earthquakes in it because I think the card's insane.
Yeah.
Like, clear the board.
Flurry here, by killing off the Crystal Merchant, clearly trying to exhaust BloodTrail of cards, to which he will say Omega lol, I imagine, and then draw his entire deck over 3 turns.
Look at this Starfall. It just kills the card.
Can he play... Oh, no, he can't quite play Starfall and Nourish on the same turn, but he's not far off, to be honest.
Yeah, the fact we're even discussing that shows how silly it is, considering they'll also clear the board and draw 3 cards.
It's still a little plays on.
I mean, Starfall just seems too good here.
Yes. I'm wondering, like, he could go... Like, it's kind of interesting how Crystal Power works post the quest activate, because it deals 2 and then heals for 5, so it's not...
Yeah, it's a weird card.
But yeah, we could have seen the play of, I think, Starfall, then Crystal Power on the Bran if he wanted to kill it off, because I think it does the damage first, then... but I'm not 100%. BloodTrail here, throwing down the Zephrys, it looks like, purely to clear up a space in his hand, saying, you know what, what I'm doing is so ridiculously powerful, I'm going to play Zephrys as a 3-2, and it's still just good.
Okay, the question is, what's in Flurry's Hunter's pack?
Ooh, okay, Webweaver is not the worst.
You can get a freebie life drinker this next turn, can set up the bow and the explosive trap this turn. Not bad.
If BloodTrail's hand was not full of card draw, Flurry, I think, would be looking at an opening back into this game. Like, next turn is going to be strong for him.
I feel like Hunter's pack is the BR aspect of Hearthstone. You just get thrown a backpack and you've just got to deal with what's in it.
Well, yeah,
Hearthstone
is a battle royale.
2 players enter, 1 leaves.
Exactly.
Oh, good. Have you seen Battle Royale, the film?
I haven't actually.
Oh.
I'm aware of its existence.
Power takes many.
Druid Loti, a card that is definitely shone now that the quest is a thing.
Oh yes, it's a 3-mana 4/6 with Rush, Taunt, Divine Shield, Stealth,
And Poison.
and Poison. And Spell Power. Did I say Spell Power?
Oof.
And now for BloodTrail, I think he can really happily just draw his whole deck and not do much else. Like, he will probably win before Chef Nomi even needs to come down, but if he doesn't, that is a very strong backup, especially considering there's still at least the Enlightened in the deck, the other kind of singleton benefit card for Druid, in that if your deck has no duplicates, play it, and it copies your hand.
Yeah.
Which means 2 Chef Nomis. Brilliant.
I'm pretty sure that BloodTrail could overflow and just spam draw into burning his whole deck, just play Chef Nomi and win the game.
I agree.
Never mind that if he actually plays an actual game of Hearthstone, you know. That's how ahead I feel he is right now.
Yeah, so we're looking at swipe these. Yeah, oh yeah, it's got
Spell
the spell
damage,
power.
yeah,
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is fantastic.
You're like, I don't really like Swipe B's play. Neither does BloodTrail. He likes doing the good plays.
Fair point. Yeah, I always forget that it gives you spell damage.
You always forget that the card does everything.
It does literally everything.
You know what's really funny with Tiamat? Have you used the double battle cry and then Tiamat before?
I haven't, no.
So you know the way you can't pick the same thing
Yes,
twice? You
can
can
you?
pick it all over again. Yeah, it gives you the full
that.
choices all over again. So basically, it gives
get
you the
mega
opportunity to screw up. Which I sometimes don't need in my life, Derek, because I don't need anyone helping me with that.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that you can't attack 3 times with it.
No.
Damn.
Oh, it's so crazy.
Well, I guess Flurry is a somewhat more reasonable health total is the solace to take away from this.
Yep.
It's not all bad.
Let's go look for that silver lining. least it's active, so BloodTrail can get what, one card?
You're not wrong.
Doubled?
Yeah, that doesn't scream enlightened to me. Kind of looks unfair, doesn't it? Gotta be honest.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Flurry concedes. I feel bad about saying that, but
I don't.
I don't really know what he can do to win this game.
Yeah.
Like somehow BloodTrail's got 40 health, and Flurry has no cards and 9 health.
This is what playing against Druid was like. Do you remember the branching paths, double Ferocious? I mean, this is one of the reasons why I like not keeping Ferocious Howl, because it was just 3 mana gain, 10, draw a card last turn. It was so much better than it was at the start. But, I mean, that's it.
Yeah, BloodTrail's played this so bad. If only he
Well,
kept their Ferocious Howl.
I mean, it's an interesting point to make, right?
Yeah,
Because
it
obviously
is.
that game was a complete runaway victory for BloodTrail. There was never really much chance for Flurry. That doesn't mean he played it that well, necessarily. Just because he got the perfect game doesn't mean he necessarily got himself there through perfect play. There were optimizations you can make. Like, that wasn't necessarily any better of a played game than if he played another matchup and got absolutely destroyed. If he played perfectly and still got destroyed, he played a better game than that one. I see your point, however. That it does seem a little bit ridiculous. But I think there for BloodTrail, overall, I would still argue with like one tiny decision. But for the most part, he did exactly what the deck was supposed to do. He knew what he was heading for.
Yeah, and I think most importantly as well is there are nerfs coming, not to Druid.
Oh yes,
so if it's looking decent today, give it a few more days and we might all be enjoying the Druid times once again. But that was just game number 1 between BloodTrail and Flurry. BloodTrail currently leading with a win on his Druid. He will not be playing it again as he's had that win. But while the players decide what they are going to be playing, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome, recruits. I'm Alec Dawson, and today I'm here to teach you what it takes to be part of the League of Explorers. We need all the help we can get, because it's time to save Uldum. First things first. Being an explorer can be dangerous. The League of Evil has already stolen Dalaran, but now they're unleashing plagues in Uldum, and they keep shuffling bombs into our decks. Luckily, Uldum is stocked with ancient treasures that may give us a chance. We've already sent some of our best explorers to retrieve these powerful artifacts, but we need you to go out into the field too. Here's your quest: raid the Sky Temple. That may seem like a lot of spells, but you'll get there faster than you think. Once we complete our quest, we'll get the hero power Ascendant Scroll, which adds a made spell to our hand and reduces the cost by 2. Ascendant Scroll allows us to load up on cheap spells for cards like Archmage and Tinnitus. Because if there's a way to defeat evil, it's fireballs to the face. Make no mistake though, the League of Evil has been leveling up too. Evil was powerful in Dalaran, but now they discovered something even more nefarious: teamwork. Here's Weaponized Wasp, one of Hagatha's new secret weapons. The laser on its head, courtesy of Blastmaster Boo. Weaponized Wasp plays well in aggressive lackey decks that look to take board control early. In Saviors of Uldum, expect to see lackey build-arounds in Shaman and Warlock. But don't worry, we also have a secret weapon. Bees! No, really, one of our junior explorers found a bee-controlling device deep in Kartut's tomb. It took us a few days to decipher the instructions, but it's quite the powerful tool. Here they come now, it's bees! A new Druid spell. This efficient removal spell excels in token-based Druid decks. Need some extra pains for Night Juggler? Bees! Need some extra bodies for Soul of the Forest? Bees! Need anything at all? Bees! All right, that's all we have for today, Explorer. We've got one more training session to go before you'll be ready for the dangers of the desert. So sit tight, and I'll see you out there in Saviors of Uldum.
Shadows are rising again. darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tomb, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. There's surely scorching deserts, and there's your monster of narcissism. High stakes think annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave. Evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save the world.
We're continuing with the series of BloodTrail versus Flurry. BloodTrail taking a very, I would say, one-sided win with that Druid. He's only got one more win needed for a very good start to Grandmaster Season 2.
Looking very, very strong indeed. After BloodTrail had, you know, mixed success, I think it's fair to say, in Season 1 of Grandmasters, as opposed to Flurry, who was on a very dominant streak over in Division B. But again, everything's all shaken up now in terms of Division A and Division B, so players who have never faced before, at least in Grandmasters, will be heading up against each other. And it now means that BloodTrail has to take a win with, again, he's in that situation. Only Warrior or Mage is needed to take a win with left. And I'd say that's a pretty good spot to be in.
Yeah, and I do believe that BloodTrail is going to be playing the Warrior and Flurry is going to be on the Hunter, I think, anyway. So it just means it's just another question for me as to, well, what matchups is Hunter winning right now? I'm not sure which ones, because when you don't have to play every single one of your decks, then it's like, oh, well, Hunter does good versus Mage. Well, I just won't play it then, because my Warrior does good versus the other stuff. And I feel like that's what we're starting to see players almost already fall into the trap of, well, I've got this deck that beats Mage, but what if they just don't play it? Then there's a problem. It doesn't beat enough other things.
And I think that's one of the things we may see as the meta advances in our new format here in Grandmasters, is perhaps the idea that you try and target a little bit more in terms of, or at least make a cohesive lineup that tries to do one thing. Because, you know, if you're trying to hard target one of these decks, or at least an overall strategy, maybe Hunter doesn't fit into that. Even if it is one of the best decks, maybe you want to go all out aggro, all out control, something like that, to try and make yourself a little bit more streamlined in what you're trying to do. Maybe not. Maybe just the best decks prevails as the archetype, as we're seeing here in Week 1. But I think I agree with you that the Highlander Hunter has definitely not found its spot quite yet.
Yeah, it's definitely just a strange one where we need to just see. It's tough because what we're talking about exists in this universe, but in a few days, everything will change as the nerfs will come in. But it's just, I feel like it's definitely going to be important to not have a one-trick pony deck where, okay, it does well versus this thing, but because it's not Old Conquest where you can target one deck, it's not going to cut it. I think you need either more well-rounded decks, or at least if Hunter's your Mage killer and you don't think they're going to play Mage then your other decks need to do the other work as well, right? Where we've been seeing that, oh, well, Warriors just got a good matchup versus everything they can pick. And it's like, well, that's a nightmare then, isn't it? It's a huge problem.
Yes, it can be indeed. Heading into this particular series, though, as to how the decks are going to be lining up against each other, I think for BloodTrail on the Mage and the Warrior, it's a little bit less clear-cut than it was in the previous series in terms of what deck you go for, because we saw, obviously, the Warrior just being the pretty clear deck to go for, and BloodTrail does end up going for that in the end. I think it's the better matchup against two of Flurry's remaining decks in Rogue and the Hunter. It was only really the Mage that he didn't want to run into, or the Warrior Mirror that he didn't want to run into.
Yeah, and look at this, just Subject 9 kept on the top for Flurry there. Did get a pretty decent opening, but BloodTrail has the early responses himself. He has that Weapons Project, as well as a Warpath for maybe emergencies in the early turns, but most importantly, the Flunky there is just looking fantastic. Oh, and then it turns.
This place is scary.
I guess Rusty Recycler feels the best here of all the picks.
I don't think I've ever seen such a poor selection.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the first time I've ever seen a Warrior Taunt not be offered at the same time as well. But yeah, I mean, the Armani Warbear is pretty clearly the best overall minion, which makes sense. I'm trying to think how much I would hate Zephyrus backstab there. And I think the answer is actually not that much. Like, getting on board early on against Warrior, I don't know, it can be kind of important. And obviously he's trying to save it for a more late game scenario where he tries to either get Tyrion, maybe burst damage to push over the edge for lethal. But I think, like, you know, the damage that you gain early on by pulling ahead on board before turn 4 hits and they start going with stuff like the Restless Mummy is not to be overlooked.
Yeah, it's really tough, isn't it? Because if you use Zephyrus on that, and you do some early damage, but then the Warrior stabilizes and gains 15 armor, then it's gone, and it could have been Tyrion. You know, like,
yeah.
I'm not saying it's always wrong, but mentally it feels difficult to play a Zephyrus that's an SI7 agent, right? It's like it feels hard to do that. So far, though, Flurry, although both these players are playing like lightning right now, Flurry is at least doing the things he wants to do. He's got that subject 9, which he kept his opening hand down, which has drawn many, many cards. And now he's at least got options in this subject 9. It's kind of sticking to the board, surprisingly. What do you think about Shield Slam Spellbreaker? Like,
it's not ridiculous.
What are you silencing against Hunter? Like,
well, you're going into turn 5, right, which does mean Ziliax, but that's not the end.
they just weapons project it and kill the second bit off. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the main thing is just that, the main thing is just that there's not all too much you really want to silence against Hunter, which is why I wouldn't have hated it then.
I know what you did.
These double weapons projects for BloodTrail coming in pretty short. And I guess if he loses, it means that the Rogue would definitely struggle to take a win against the Warrior.
I thought that was a microphone then, and I realized it was actually a little cat.
BloodTrail playing on hard mode.
I just thought it was, you know when you see people like shooting either, videos or films or whatever, they have those mics on the big sticks, yeah? I thought it was one of those. It's like, is BloodTrail just filming a documentary or something at this point? And also, I don't think the mic should be below him. I think it's normally on top.
Unity. Precision.
But there's the Zilla actions and Spellbreak. It didn't quite happen on the turn I thought it would, but it happened nonetheless. Next turn is the big one.
Yeah, that'll do. These snakes for BloodTrail, almost a blessing, more so than an actual curse here, as if, as you said, turn 7, if he does want to go for Diamond Tamer Brown, that will make it very unlikely that the King Crush will survive the rule.
Yeah, 1 out of 5 without BloodTrail putting any minions on the board himself as well.
And this will obviously be going through Flurry's mind as he considers what the play should be here. We could very well just see Secret Animal Companion Hero Power gets a lot of damage in. If he gets anything other than Huffer, it won't be able to clear off the Animal Companion with the weapon.
If he hadn't have gone down the route of the subject, then he could have gone for Zephyrus into Harrison, which wouldn't have been a half bad turn at all. But I don't think Flurry really needs the card draw. And I'm not really sure how much of a threat this Super Collider is, at least right now. So I think holding the Zephyrus could be good.
Sure.
Maybe just play Secrets and Animal Companion. I'm going to come down though. Flurry going to keep it simple. Pushing in the face. Just clear all the armor though.
Yeah, it's a start, to say the least. It's definitely a start. And we've seen previously the power of Zul'jin when you get into the later stages of the game, especially when Unleash the Beast has been played. But we're not there quite yet. Oh, you believe for a second.
Sometimes it's a hunt you've got to.
I mean, that would have been dreadful for BloodTrail if that had happened.
Oh, what about the follow-up now and just see him at?
Super Collider is not bad, yeah. I can see CMA.
Mainly because the brand's just a great target to be collided into, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd obviously rather it be a 1-1, but you can't always get you one. Maybe stack Secrets with Animal Companion wouldn't be too bad either.
I just think getting the Tiamat down before we hit turn 10 is not all too bad. I guess it's not too vulnerable to Omega Devastator because you can hit the Divine Shield. But just something like Divine Shield Wind Fury there to go as aggressive as possible was definitely scary.
If it's secret into Zephyrus, does he then get off a Tyrion? Because he could put the Zephyrus in the middle. No. Never mind. Because it wouldn't offer him 1-drops, would it? It would offer Tyrion. Or something along those lines.
I don't.
Maybe you say it, I think.
Yeah, I think it starts to get funky then when you don't need the appropriate amount of Zephyrus could be used here to find the Black Knight, which would be a pretty big tempo swing in Flurry's favour. But then again, at the same time, Black Knight just gets cleared off for the most part by the weapon. And it seems like Flurry has got a pretty clear plan in some way for this Zephyrus.
Yeah, I don't think he's even considered it yet, has he?
Not really.
He didn't look like at any point was he thinking, oh, maybe now.
So hit of the weapon and 5 activations of Warpath. Obviously clears it off, but he does have to be afraid then of Rat Trap, but then he could go for the Armani Warbed to take that out as well. So, you know, there's plenty of ways to clear off the board here, but you know, there's alternate ways he could do that as well. Yeah, try and weave in a Devastator, something like that.
What now?
It's just a little bit tricky because none of it feels very clean, or it uses a lot of punts. So BloodTrail's just going to work out exactly how far he wants to. I don't think he has to go that far. Like, is this board that scary?
So he's holding back on the removal in favor of development.
Yeah, I like this.
Really? This is a lot of resources on, like, not much. Like, only getting 1 activation of Snip Snap.
Yeah. I don't know, I just feel like using that level of removal just to clear some Snip Snaps isn't really worth it.
Fair.
Because
Yeah,
look at this board, like BloodTrail's winning, you know, like he's ahead on board by a large margin.
Good point. And I think I do always overvalue the benefit of activating a Rat Trap and dealing with it immediately when you could just not activate it for the vast majority of the game. Tiamat doing a killer job here of clearing up the board, taking a very nice value trade first.
Other than Tiamat randomly living for a turn, that's actually one of the highest value ones I've seen in a while.
Flurry taking a very mature approach, I suppose, in playing around the Ziliax by clearing off all the mechs, which makes some amount of sense. Of course, you don't want to go too all in and then have victory wrestled from the jaws of defeat.
These secrets are just starting to get annoying now, aren't they? For BloodTrail. They don't really do much in terms of... It's not like they lose him the game, but they're just frustrating to deal with. I'm not really sure how he goes about this, but he just has to play the mummy, right?
He doesn't have to. Like, we could just see hero power passing for the moment. It's not an unbeatable amount of damage to be facing down. Well,
Good
if
talk.
at first you don't succeed.
Swing a super glider at them.
That's how it goes. Kind of weird though, with like the weapons project is obviously kind of good here to overwrite the bow, but it's still 6 damage, whether it's 2 sets of 3 or 3 sets of 2. You still got to be a little bit afraid. Oh, that Harrison's pretty spicy.
Can't be.
Put your
Still
faith
takes
in
the
the
2
light.
instead. Interesting.
I mean, that's a lot of damage.
Yeah, it is. I guess I just consistently underestimate how good Tyrion must be in this matchup.
Well, I don't think BloodTrail does run Harrison, But in general, when you look, even if it's what, say 10 damage across the minion and the weapon,
It's pretty
that's
nice.
a lot.
Fair point. And that's definitely what
You play a Highlander deck to do that kind of damage.
True.
Like,
And that's definitely what Flurry, his advantage is at the moment, is pushing damage to face as quick as possible before BloodTrail can win back the board. Which he's done a pretty good job of. Like,
push
this
what,
snip snap
20
has
this
been
turn, I think?
insane.
yeah, I think you can push 20 this turn.
Wow.
That's a lot of damage.
That's a huge
If
damage.
BloodTrail was playing a regular class, he'd nearly be dead.
He'd be
He
long
is
dead.
not, though.
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit tricky, isn't it?
Warpath Plague of Wrath, well, interestingly enough, doesn't actually even clear the board because of the snip snap. Death Rattle, and if you went double Warpath, then Plague of Wrath, the Rat Trap would activate afterwards, which is not the order you want it to go in. So yeah, everything just a bit awkward here for BloodTrail.
I mean, you could still just leave the 1/1s on, right? The 1/1s aren't the end of the world.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Which is a big consideration. Like Hero Power, Warpath, Plague of Wrath, not bad. Or even, oh no, Warpath Dynamatic
This
doesn't
would be
quite.
a good time for a master plan. Oh, I love that fuse thing.
So Plague is going to come down. He's going to knock off the last durability of that weapon, but add an Ashbringer to his opponent's hand. Not much he could really do about it. He's going to replay. He's going to replay Weapons Project just to clear the Ashbringer off. It does save some damage.
But it activates Rat Trap!
Ugh.
And he misses the Hero Power. Why not do this next turn?
Yeah, I think you could have taken 5 there, right?
Yes.
Take
Discover a
5
mech?
damage to discover a mech.
I'm very surprised by
He's
that.
ended
play.
up taking more damage, actually.
Yeah. He does.
So that's 14 damage.
Oh man, the value building up now for Flurry.
Oh.
Oh, Gladiator's Longbow. It's no Ashbringer, but it's a good consolation prize. And that card's really bad compared to Tyrion, huh?
Yes.
My
Set your
pack
immune.
will hunt you down.
I guess it's a different. Yeah.
So now, not only has Flurry got the aggressive approach with these minions he has, the weapon, and also the life drinker, he's also just got Zul'jin, which is going to get him a load of stuff anyway now.
Yeah. Double Warpath Dynamatic does not clear. I don't think even Double Warpath Swing Dynamatic clears.
It'll be one off, right?
Yeah. So, Restless Mummy. Oh no, yeah, the Dynamatic without Rush, so he would be able to clear things off
okay.
there. But fitting in the Hero Power makes that an impossibility yet again.
No tune can hold me. No tune can hold me.
Yeah, this has come off the back of BloodTrail proccing that rat. Imagine if that rat just wasn't there. It'd be in such a better spot.
Much stronger position. Especially as now we're looking at, oh, how much is this? 5 extra damage, or sorry, 3 extra damage up to 10 on this turn, I believe.
Your opponent to 4 and then play Zul'jin next turn.
Sounds good to me. Or even just go for the longbow. That represents lethal if they can't find healing or armor. Or you can just find the Leroy to close out the game.
Wow, okay.
Oh.
See, I need to watch that game back, because if I'm honest, I'm not 100% sure what point that slipped away.
Yeah.
But that felt pretty good for Flurry, and I'm not 100% sure why yet. So I'll have to find that one out a little bit later. But Flurry is going to even it up and get a win with the Hunter. BloodTrail still has his Warrior available, but that was a good win for Flurry.
And that is one thing I'm constantly surprised by with this Highlander Hunter, is just its ability to go into the late game. Because At first, I'd pigeonholed it as kind of just a meme deck, to be perfectly honest. Before I saw it perform at Seoul, I really was not convinced by it. Then I pigeonholed it as, okay, it's kind of an aggro anti-mage deck for the most part, where it just tries to tempo out early on, close things out with Bran. But I'm realizing that doesn't actually have to be the case at all. If you're running, well, you're pretty much always running Zul'jin, but if you get the Zul'jin package, especially with the Hunter's pack, the value that you can accrue and just the consistent damage chip throughout the whole game is really, really surprising. It's even able to stand up against the might of Dr. Boom.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy one, actually. I was really not expecting Flurry to even that one up, but he's still got, I think, a tough choice to make and a tough match to win, because BloodTrail can just play the Warrior again. And I feel like, the more games you play with that deck, you are going to win, because the deck is top tier at the moment.
It's true. Things get a bit more interesting there, because obviously Flurry, I imagine, well, if he's expecting the Warrior from BloodTrail, will line up his own Warrior, because it's a better matchup than with the Quest, I would imagine. Oh no, sorry, with the Rogue. But having said that, he's not standard aggro Rogue. He's Quest Rogue with Bizarre Burglary. Being
and Chef Nomi too.
Yeah, Chef Nomi as well, right? Like, this is a decent amount of late game aggression that he can throw down. So maybe we just see the Quest Rogue because it's in a decent spot against the Warrior and probably pretty good against the Mage that's left for BloodTrail.
Yeah, you know what? I think looking at it,
you don't mind the Rogue.
I don't mind the Rogue. The deck, the Warrior deck is a little bit different. There's an Execute in there. There's an Azalina Soul Thief in there as well.
Bomb Warrior as well, primarily.
Yeah. So, wow. I mean, maybe you'd want to play that, but I think I'm with you, actually. Convince me. Maybe the Rogue's just good enough, and for the first time in Grandmasters, we get to see Quest Rogue.
The new Quest Rogue.
And Flurry playing it as well. If there's ever a Rogue deck that's a little bit maybe untested, well, if Flurry brings it, it's got to be at least decent, because he is a master of that class.
As you can see there, Bizarre Burglary. The reward, the quest to add 4 cards from other classes to your hand, and the reward, Ancient Blades, which is 2 mana hero power to equip a 3/2 weapon. And in addition to that, if that wasn't good enough already, when you swing with your weapon, you are immune. So it means you can just constantly be taking out the board turn after turn without the usual damage that Rogue can't really heal out of range of. Or you can just start punching face, which is very often what you're doing with this deck. 2 mana for 3 damage each turn. Ain't all too bad of a reward at all.
Yeah, and also as well, it's more the investment of 2 mana for 3 damage over 2 turns, right? Because it's not Hunter Hero Power. You don't have to keep paying it.
Good point.
And also, if you and just the nature of cards like Pilfer, even Clever Disguise, which is one of the new Rogue cards, is just a lot of value that you can keep up with Warrior. I mean, pre-expansion, Rogue was actually one of the highest value decks in the game, in my opinion at least. And now, when you add a hero power that's also high value to it, you've got to wonder what that matchup actually plays out like, actually, thinking about it.
You do.
It's strange.
There's a couple of things I question about Flurry's build of this deck. Given the fact that he's playing a deck that runs Pilfer and is not running Underbelly Fence, that starts to raise some alarm bells, because obviously there's a reason why you're playing Pilfer. You need all these stealing cards to activate the quest, to activate Vendetta in particular as well. But I think I would make it a pretty high priority to find a spot for Underbelly Fence here, because a 2 mana 3/4 rush, that is the payoff of playing these kind of burgle packages.
Yeah, you know what I'm staring at right now?
What?
There's prep ×2 in the deck.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what he's prepping.
Well, there's Clever Disguise.
Well, there's Clever Disguise and Pilfer, but they're like 1 mana, 2 mana cards. There's Sap, and it's
Myras.
like there are targets, but I feel for how good prep is now versus, as you said, you could play Fences instead of preps in this deck, and I think it might be better.
I would like to see Fences a lot. Like preps, also you got to remember that there's Hench Clan Burglars in there, which can obviously spell spells. All your Burgle cards can also find spells. I certainly don't mind the preps in there, but
I was just
they
looking more of
definitely
what's
feel
cuttable
lower to me than the Underbelly Fence, for sure.
Okay, well, let's get into it. It's the deciding game of this series. Both players 1-on-1. BloodTrail a very slow opening, and might sound weird, but we're used to Warriors having 1-drops and 2-drops and 3-drops.
I know, a control deck passing 1 through 5 seems ridiculous to even consider. But Flurry, on the other hand, has got himself a pretty dynamite starting hand. It doesn't have... Well, it's a bit of a weird one, right? Because it doesn't have any of the early game oomph in the form of... I don't know, Blink Fox, Miscreant, Pharaoh Cat. It's missed all the early minions. What it has found is a very respectable amount of mid-game power. Just being able to go Myra's, Chef Nomi, brilliant.
Yeah, suddenly only one prep away from a good time right now.
True.
Still needs the mana to play Chef Nomi, of course, but is Flurry finally going to get a playable? Okay.
I mean, it is technically playable.
Is he going to Vendetta the one?
I mean,
sure.
Use the Celestial Embassy for a 6 damage swing, which is not bad with Vendetta. I'm just not exactly sure we'd want to target with that.
Yeah, Vendetta's good because it kills most things, so you don't really need spell damage with it.
I was wondering if it was ever the multi-pay bodyguard for the 5 cost card, but I guess he's got a bunch of 5 drops anyway. Safeguard makes a lot more sense.
Ooh.
It's not the worst ever.
It's not literally the worst card in the game.
Well, it's not Generous Mummy, I think is the general sentiment you go with there. But I guess when your plan is pretty clearly Chef Nomi Myra's, a little bit slow.
Yeah. It is a scary card when you get it though sometimes. You know, the second you play it, like, oh wow, how does my opponent actually deal with
it?
this?
It just never dies. Yeah.
So one of the things I feel like Priest is missing a little bit, where instead of the Divine Spirit in a fire, I do like this whole like destroy and reborn style, because I really like the card that is it the 3 mana 3/3 that destroy the minion and resummon it.
Yes.
Like, stuff like that is actually pretty cool with
That
like
card's
Leroy
nuts.
and
Yeah.
reborn and things. And you know, I like the 10 drop as it kind of fits the theme, but Priest is getting nerfed soon, and we didn't need to get rid of Divine Spirit.
I think some kind of a temporary step would be a lot cooler to play against.
But for now, though, Flurry is just gonna get the 2-1 down. I think mainly to just play it and get some on the board more than anything.
Yeah, this bizarre burglary is looking to be a bit of a bumble here. Celestial Emissary being reborn. These are extremely unpowerful things that we're seeing from Flurry. However, it's obviously setting up for Myra's Unstable Element to draw the highest number of cards possible, and therefore, I think it's probably right.
Is unpowerful a word? I'm not even winding you up, I don't know.
I'm not sure. Underpowered? Lacking in power? I'm not sure.
Someone will tweet us. Probably subtle.
Yeah,
well, that'd be incredible.
He
since we're
transcends the half-an-hour delay.
Yeah, we're actually on a delay. Imagine. I'd be terrified if that happened, actually.
Yeah, he can smell incorrect grammar.
Thousands of miles away.
I'm out of
Flurry here
cards.
going in with what is already the final push with this deck. Trying to set up for a big Chef Nomi game plan. And he's got already a Shadow Step to bolster that plan, which is going to be pretty necessary when you factor in that there's already a Brawl ready to go.
Say the magic word.
He's actually got a lot of value in that Myra's as well. If you look at the 2 clever disguise, like,
Which is not really what he wanted, actually. He's just got one game plan and he wants to do it as quick as he can. And, you know, he's doing exactly that. This was, I think, may seem pretty obvious, but the fact that he went Myra's on 6, Nomi on 7, step it, his hand said one thing and he went for exactly that. Problem thereafter is that he's actually taking no small amount of damage. He's going to have to get ahead on board pretty securely here, I think, if he's going to be able to lock this one down.
yeah, he's going to be very dead very soon. He can kill off the safeguard, which is always nice, of course. But it's the follow-up that's the question. And surely he just has to play Nomi again, Derek.
Yes, yeah, I think he's just wondering if he should play Clever Disguise first to see, you know, what he can get, or if he wants to play any other minions first, but I don't think he would.
Do you feel something burning?
Oh yeah, hero power.
Those are the biggest 2 troll options of a Clever Disguise I've ever seen.
2 pointless cards.
They do literally nothing. Well, actually,
They hurt
Serenity
him.
Madness is worse than nothing.
Oh, the pickup. If there was...
Wow. Yeah,
If-
that was one hell of a pickup.
there was
it's just
actually
too
the
late.
the warpath, that would be insane.
So 36 damage on board. Oh no, sorry. After the shield slam, 36 damage on board.
And he has 3 more.
38 health.
Have you included the weapon?
No, sorry, purely
Right.
on damage. Yeah, because it's 6 times 6, 36 damage, right? I mean, he's got Leroy and weapon. Like, there's way more than that in actuality.
Well, yeah, I just mean you can't play the Leroy, but the weapon damage is guaranteed, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, good point. If nothing was removed.
Yeah.
Sorry. Factoring in the shield slam, which I expect to come down.
I've got more left in me.
This does now mean 30, 36. I don't think this is actually lethal now, right? Because you've got a swing of the weapon. One of the guys, 30 plus Leroy, 36. Which means it's just a tad off. Obviously, Clever Disguise could give Silence as a card to win the game on the spot. Backstab. Zap. Like there's a few options here that could win the game. Still only 36 damage.
Pesky Tolvir on 3 health.
Yeah, very, very annoying. And well played by BloodTrail as well. You know, the temptation to go for the hero power instead was there, but this flunky play was much better.
A place to hide.
I really like that card, by the way.
Choose suicide.
Me too. When you get
It's
it,
surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
really, really good. Just the fact that the Reborn gets stealth as well
Yep,
is
yep.
very, very pesky to deal with. So now we are looking at a Plague of Wrath, maybe, hopefully, being able to get BloodTrail over the finish line. But I think with the sheer amount of damage and the Leroy as well, it's just not quite enough.
Yeah, and that is just what happens when you accelerate that game plan to the extent Flurry did. As you said, Myra's on 6, Nomi on 7, and the Shadow Step being pulled from the Myras was enough. And Flurry continues what now is a tradition of starting off well in the Grandmasters seasons as he takes a win there over BloodTrail. Very close. And I think it could have easily gone the other way. I think if Flurry didn't have such a direct opening hand,
Yeah.
I mean, he had Myras, he had Nomi.
That's what you do.
That's the game plan.
Yep.
If the hand was more natural in terms of just a regular game plan for the Rogue, I think the game would have been a lot closer. But with a brawl outside of having exactly the Warpath and the Plague, there's just nothing BloodTrail can do, and that's just going to be the game. And Flurry takes the series overall, so congratulations to him. Pretty good game.
Yeah, very nice way to start things off. I think that we're seeing a little bit of a trend, although it hasn't been quite so clear-cut, of the players who are going a little bit more creative with their game plans seem to be doing well. Whereas, you know, BloodTrail, another one of the players there who protected his warrior in the shield phase, banned the mage in the banning phase, which is, you know, definitely a good level 0 place to start,
Right.
but maybe not the most effective way once you run through all the scenarios in your head.
Yeah,